Welcome to Turn a Page, the official comic book club for Nerd Initiative. Each week, the NI Bullpen will be covering the world of comics, talking to creators, deep diving into some fantastic stories, and much more. Now let's hand it over to the team and turn a page.
Jordan, man, thank you so much for reaching out to us because
thanks.
This was a delight to read.
Oh,
Awesome.
good. I'm glad y'all liked it. Thank you. Yeah, it's nice. I haven't book's not out yet, so it's nice to hear what folks think about it. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah, you're gonna get a little tease today, folks, which hopefully you run. Absolutely do not walk come July when this comes out. So first things first, though, we'd like to talk about about you. So we want to know your geek origin story. How did you get into the comic book author world? And then go ahead and explain. You have got a podcast, man. You've done it all. So go ahead and introduce yourself.
Listen, Matt, I don't want to host your show for you, but I got to intro my beer. When do I crack the beer?
I've been auditioning new hosts. Tell us what beer.
Oh yeah, he's got a beer.
He does have a beer of the week.
I got a beer. This is the Vandals Punk Rock Fest beer from Long Beach Beer Lab. The Vandals, of course, Southern California punk rock legends. They have a beer now, I guess, that I found at Trader Joe's. They're like one of the bands of my youth, and when I saw their logo on a beer can, I don't know, had to grab it. So yeah, it's really tasty. It's a nice, easy drinking beer that you might grab at a music festival, and I'll crack it here on mic.
Ooh, yeah,
I love that sound.
I love that sound. Yes, it's man, music. I was talking to somebody the other day. I was like, when the Great Climate Wars happen, we're gonna be just fine because I remember back in my day at Warped Tour, I survived off of one water bottle in a dusty parking lot full of people pushing each other around.
Chugging Bud Lights in the parking lot because
we were drinking Monster Energy drinks. We're gonna be just fine. All right.
I don't think I drank water until 2012.
Same.
Yeah, it wasn't until I got a little older I was like, oh no, I actually need this to live.
Right.
Yeah, we were drinking.
So now we all have Stanley cups and we carry them with us everywhere, and we pound water.
But no, man, go ahead. What is your geek origin story? What was the first time you felt yourself getting immersed, background, all of that good kind of jazz into the world of geekdom?
Yeah, so I was, I was a kid who enjoyed your nerdier pop cultures. I was a comics kid. Grew up in the '90s, so read a lot of like Spider-Man with clone-related plots. Of course.
Oh yeah, they loved those.
Yeah, a lot of clone Spideys back in the '90s. And yeah, of course, like those great Chris Claremont X-Men were coming out. The X-Men trading cards were very big. Love to get a hologram. Love to get a hologram Wolverine. That was a treat. And I was a video game kid and a drama kid later in high school. Speaking of your niche-er nerderies. And yeah, I've just kind of loved all that stuff growing up and have been like really lucky and fortunate and all that stuff to get to like work with some of this stuff. I always like dreamed of doing comics and took a couple of swings at it in my 20s that didn't go anywhere. So the fact that I've gotten to like do comics is just like it's like a literal childhood dream come true. It's like amazing, and it like ended up being cool. It's one of those things where it's like, oh, if you get your dream and then it ruins your life, it's like, no, it's cool. It's really fun. Right. And you get to make comics and it's a blast. So, I've been so lucky.
Yeah. You always hear like, oh, are you sure you want your dream job? Because you're still going to have to work and it's going to be just as stressful. And it's like, yeah, but if it's something I love, like, there's going to be stress no matter where you go. It's like, but if it's something I actively enjoy, it's your own stories, man. Like this is straight from your brain into the pages. And that's what makes it even better too. You're telling the stories that more often than not you want to tell.
Yeah, legitimately cool. I cannot oversell the thrill of like writing something and then having that tangible object. Like I've done, I've done TV and I've done podcasts and like that is all very cool. I love doing that stuff, but like the first time I got an author copy, I can't describe the thrill. It's so
dude, you see your name on it and it's just like, wow, this is real, man. Like
seeing it in a library is so cool. It's awesome. It's so cool. And yeah, I think if anybody like dreams of doing it, they absolutely should. It's so cool. And yeah, and I'm a big like physical book guy. I definitely don't have an e-reader. I don't read on an iPad. I like holding the book. I like
me too.
boxing them up and moving them to new apartments. And
well, there's something nice too
and
because you can
and
turn them into like
referring to them, and like you can just pull up the book and
or it's like,
I
hey, somebody comes into your house and like, wow, look at all these books you have, and it's like a good talking piece, or you know, if you want to like revisit. And now in the day and age of like streaming, how often do we see things get pulled from streaming services? And so now it's like,
and then I gotta go dust off my DVD. Yeah,
it's like, so then you're like, I want to read this piece, and it's right there, and it's hard to beat, especially when it has your name on it, man. And the book we're talking today is exciting because it's about a young girl who joins a youth group. Only she stumbles upon her counselors doing an actual exorcism, and from there she learns she's a bit special. So we've already kind of got a bit of you in this book, I noticed, from the drama and the video games. So tell us what kind of gave you the idea for youth group, which is this exciting adventure of churchgoers fighting the forces of evil in the world, right?
Yeah, so I was a youth group kid. I back there in
youth
the old
group
90s.
was fun. I was a youth group kid in the 90s.
Sure.
We had donuts on Sunday morning and we hung out, and the youth pastor was always this young 20-something-year-old guy. And like, it was fun.
Maybe youth pastors got some tattoo sleeves, turns the chair around backwards.
Like when I was growing up,
pretty cool guy named JC, who's pretty punk rock, if you ask me.
Well, like 100%. Punk rock and like all the metalcore bands growing up, like the Devil Wears Prada and Under Oath, were like in the Christian scene. So like that kind of segued a lot of like youth group kids into like the metalcore scene. So a lot of my friends that were in youth groups were into that scene, and it was fun, man. Yeah, I totally get that.
That's a little bit after my time. I think we're seeing the gap in our age, but I mean, we had Christian ska bands. I went to see a ton of Christian ska bands back in the day, and and like the church where I went, they had like shows in the youth group room, right? Like on a Saturday night,
you'd be in the basement of a church raging out. Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely, skanking our little hearts out. So yeah, I always just kind of liked this little world and thought it was funny, and I think it's something that I had never seen gotten right in media. Like, I think you see kind of this stuff sometimes in pop culture, but I don't think anyone really ever got what was funny about it or what was weird about it. So it's always something I kind of just in the back of my head, I'm like, I want to do something with the youth group, because I don't think I think they're hilarious, so much cringe, oh my gosh, but also so much like teen emotion in there. It always just kind of struck me as like, oh, this would be a good setting for a story. So I just kind of had that in the back of my mind. And then, I think I just had the idea, like, what if these goofballs I grew up with had to do actual exorcisms? I mean, they're talking about Satan constantly, but what would happen if these, suburban goobers actually had to like fight Satan? So that was the germ of the idea. And I kind of just started filling out the world with like people I grew up with and characters from my life. And kind of like wrote out a little treatment for it and then pitched it to my editor, Callista Brill at First Second, great comic book company. Callista Brill, great editor. And and it's funny that the treatment that I turned into her, the pitch that I turned into her, it was set in modern day. And so when we had our kind of first call about it, she's like, I like this. Here's the changes I think you should make. She's like, I think this is like clearly coming from a personal place. So go back and set it in the 90s when you grew up. And she had a couple other suggestions kind of along those lines. And like I like the writing I do typically is not super personal. Like I don't write memoir or anything like that. Like,
you're not standing there as the rain falls upon your window and be like, yes, on the 31st day of October.
Yes.
But you gotta write what you know, though.
Yeah. So I write for like kids animation a lot, and it's very much like there's a pre-established tone, there's a showrunner, you have to do what the showrunner wants, you have to do what the network wants, and like there's not a ton of room for like your personal story and that stuff. But with this, I started writing it, and then like when I started proofreading it, I'm like, oh yeah, this is really personal. Like I am putting a ton of like my childhood feelings into it, and there's people I grew up with. So I think Callista really like saw that this was more than just like a funny premise, like, which it is. Like it's a funny premise. Like goofy Christians have to do exorcisms, and that's kind of how I was thinking about it until I started writing it. And then I was like, oh yeah, this is like maybe as close to a memoir as I will ever write. And I don't think there's a character in it that it's like, that's Jordan, but I don't know. When I read it, I recognize a lot of my life in it.
Right. No, I could tell almost immediately. I think I was like 17 pages in and I text Matt because he hadn't started reading it yet. I'm like, this is hilarious. But it was, I knew that it was somebody who had gone to youth group because I had grown up in youth group in the 90s. And, like we mentioned before, I loved Jars of Clay and I saw DC Talk and I saw Newsboys and I went to these concerts in middle school. And so it felt like, you said you couldn't see yourself in it, but I feel like you could probably see that happening in front of you.
Yeah,
and I thought all of these characters were so great. And even the pastor, there was a moment where he was a little bit stubborn and like you weren't allowed to question him. And I remember that being a thing in church where like I asked a question about, well, would somebody go to hell if they never got the opportunity to accept Christ into their heart? And the youth pastor was not having it. Well, that they would get an opportunity. Yeah, but what if they didn't? They would get an opportunity. Well, let's say that they lived here. They would get an opportunity. It was like, don't question it. Everybody gets an opportunity. So I was like, this was so personal and so fun and hilarious. So I do have a question though about these songs. There's a lot of religious parody songs named throughout the book, like "Livin' La Vida Jesus."
Mm-hmm.
So how did this come up, and were there any that didn't make the cut that you had wanted to put in there?
Oh gosh, that is a great question. So yeah, I definitely remember from my youth group, during some of the fun events, the youth pastors would always like do little songs and little skits, and they would always kind of try and awkwardly incorporate like pop culture into them. And yeah, I just remembered some of these parody songs from my youth and decided that, this youth group should absolutely do them, for a little bit of that cringe comedy we love so much. So yeah, gosh, so what is in there? It's actually been a hot second since I've read this. So there's Livin' La Vida Jesus. There's an Ace of Base.
Smash Mouth,
which,
right.
by the way, you don't have to change that many Ace of Base lyrics for them to be kind of
You really don't.
It's one of those where I'm like, were they religious? Were they like secretly a Christian band? Or yeah, anyway, Ace of Base, you don't have to change a lot. And I think there's a Smash Mouth, might as well be walking on the sun, spelled S-O-N.
Yes.
I don't know. I forget if there was any cut ones we didn't use. I'll tell you what, I'll go through my notes after we get off this call. And if I find any cool cut ones, I'll send them your way and you guys can post them on social media.
Nice. But every time there was a song reference, that definitely made me giggle.
Oh, good. Cool.
So the art was absolutely perfect for this story as well. So it was illustrated by Bowen McCurdy. And I did notice the leg lamp in there at one point from A Christmas Story.
I did too, yes.
So that was a fun little Easter egg. But so the art, like I was just saying, it's so perfect because it's so innocent and it's
gorgeous.
Yeah, it's just perfect for this story. So what was the process for the art? Was it a lot of collaboration back and forth, or did Bowen just know what you wanted and it just came out how you expected?
So Bowen was kind of introduced to me by the publisher by First Second. They had like been wanting to work with them on things and thought this was a good match. Bowen's other series is Spectre Inspectors, the Boom book, which is a similar kind of like, it is set in modern day, but it is a like plucky kids fighting supernatural monsters book, which everyone should check out. Spectre Inspectors is awesome. It's so funny. It's so cool. It's the first thing of Bowen's I read, and I was like, oh yeah, absolutely, this is the person. And yeah, Bowen was great to work with. Like, I think something I like about their art so much is like the characters are so expressive, and I think that's something that like helped comedy in a comic. Like it's weird to do comedy in comics. It's like it doesn't always work, and like the funny comics are rare. Like, or where the comedy works, it's kind of rare, I think. And like I think it works in this because like the acting for the characters is so good. Like their expressions and their postures, they really like help sell the comedy of what's going on. And like Bowen nailed all that stuff in one. I was like, I don't like got the humor of it, understood the character, and just like, I don't know, I marvel at all the poses and all the facial expressions, and they're just such a joy. And and I do like that it is like kind of bright and fun. Like it's a YA book. I think like hopefully readers of all ages will enjoy this, but it is like a YA book. And I think
100%.
And I think we do want teens to pick it up. And so, yeah, I think the fact that it has a little like manga vibe to it is cool. And yeah, and I think the like kind of bright, fun color palette is great too. I mean, it's set in Orange County, which is, kind of comically sunny and beachy.
Oh
And
yeah.
yeah, and I think kind of, cuter, softer characters fighting demons just it, I don't know, helps sell the comedy. I think it's great. I loved working with Bowen, and like just everything Bowen does is really terrific.
Well, I think
Uh,
a lot too. You say this is kind of like a age, it's for all ages. And I really think it is, because one thing that I picked up on is for us, like Lauren's older than I am. She went back and saw a lot of like her youth in there. Me, I could also relate to a lot of that. But then also there's Kay, who's this teenager essentially who is only going to church because of her mom. Her mom and dad just got divorced. Her mom is really asking her to kind of do this without going too in depth into the spoiler pages of the book, right? I don't want to give too much away because I want people to read this and be surprised, because there are a lot of really good twists and turns in this. And it's the things that you do for your parents. Her mom's like, just give it a try. Just give it a try.
Yeah.
And she's like, all right, because I love you, I will. And again, you can kind of see a lot of like how many teenage kids out there can kind of relate to that, because they may not have the best relationship with their parents and they give it a try. And it's the cringy dialogue from like the cool pastors, and but at the same time, like they're endearing, they're very two opposite ends of the spectrum. One's very hard up into the traditional, this is our version of Christianity. And I think you played into this well as well too, because they talk about the different groups. You have the Wiccans, you have all sorts of different groups, and there's even a line that's like, well, don't you all believe in the same thing? And I always say this about modern religion. Everybody believes essentially in the same thing, but how you do it is different. And that's even addressed in the book. So I think you really brought up a
mhm.
lot of really good questions and made a lot of people also self-reflect while having fun.
Mhm.
Yeah, thanks. That's nice of you to say, and that I'm glad you noticed that. I mean, and I think the book is it's supposed to be funny and fun, and hopefully doesn't feel like homework for anybody to read. But like,
No, it doesn't at
yeah,
all. The whole
It
book was
may
I
say
read it,
like
yeah, I sat there, read it all in.
260 pages, but this is like such a fun read. You don't
okay,
know the page count at all. By the end
No,
of the
I
book,
read
you're
it in
like,
one
I kind of
sitting.
want more of these characters, because of the way it wraps up very neatly. There's not really too many cliffhangers, I would say. Like I would say, did you leave the door open for potential future in these characters? I would say.
oh yeah, I would love to do more. I love these characters. I love the way that Bowen kind of helped bring them to life. And yeah, I hope it is a one and done. I hope you can like, not maybe not one and done, but I hope that it has a beginning, a middle, and an end, and you can read it and feel like you got a whole story. But
Mhm.
yeah, I would love to do more. Yeah, I would. Yeah, sure. I have little nuggets of ideas for things I would do with them in future projects. So yeah, hopefully people like this one and check it out, and we get to do more. I know I'm speaking for myself, but I would love to do more.
Yeah, there's always more demons out there to be hunted.
There's
That's
so
true.
many demons. They're everywhere. These things.
Well,
Literal and figuratively.
Yes,
I love
the earth
there
is
was a
lousy with demons.
there's a scene where like one of our main characters is kind of chilling with one of the demons, and he's like, "You promise you." There's like this really sweet scene. He's like, "We're enemies, but in this moment we're not." He's like, "You promise you won't tell that I'm telling you this." And it's just like it's funny because again,
Yeah.
like you made this so lighthearted. There's some real messages in this book, but at the same
But
time, you
it's
made it so much. I had so much fun. Truthfully,
Oh,
so
yeah,
much
thanks.
fun.
it's
And
I
I
never a
want to.
think
Full House moment. It's always
eh,
funny.
yeah, there's always like, oh, I can relate to that. Oh, the video games, I can relate to that. Oh, this, it's one of the more relatable comic books I have probably read this year. I will
Oh, cool.
easily say
Thank you.
that. And I think
Nice of you to
I
say.
Yes.
think people are going to be surprised going into this, because they're going to think, oh, wait, religion. But it's more than that. It's
No.
kids and young adults fighting demons, man. What more do you need in this
Yeah.
world? And I think people are going to be really surprised by how well they're going to connect to this book personally.
Well, this scene with the mother and the daughter in the car, I related to the mother and the daughter because the daughter is probably my age, but the mother trying to use the slang that I try to use with my 11-year-old who's like says things that I don't even know what she's saying
Yeah.
anymore. So it's very interesting. And both my two oldest, which are both girls that are around the teenage, did drama. So everything single thing you hit was like directed towards me. So one of my last questions for you though is, you described this as a Buffy meets Sabrina. Like Matt was saying before, I'm a huge Supernatural fan. You can even
I
see
love
the
Sabrina too.
license
Yeah,
plate
man.
here. I got a little
Yeah.
soldier boy there. So what were some of your non-religious, not personal experiences that inspired you to write this story?
Oh yeah. As far as like other pop culture that I liked and was thinking about when I wrote this, yeah, like Buffy, of course. Buffy is such a wonderful tone, and
Oh yeah.
it was such a mind blower at the time that it came out. It like, oh, this is funny and the jokes are great, but like the genre stuff is taken so seriously, and it felt like watching a comic book to me in a way that other media never did. So yeah, and I liked how the comedy in that is like character based too. Like it's not, they do some little like jokes about horror and about supernatural stuff, but it's mostly like these characters are very real. They it's so funny because you're like, oh God, that is so Xander. Like of course
Oh
Xander
yeah.
would do that. I like those types of jokes, and I like it when yeah, and I think there's, when someone's talking to you about something that you worked on, like them saying I like this character is a good compliment, but like a great compliment is I know this character. Like I know this guy, I went to school with this guy. That's such a wonderful compliment, and I think that's something that I try and do when I'm creating original characters, is make them like someone you would know, and not less like an archetype or a riff on a pre-existing character. But I'm like, I'm gonna dump a bunch of specifics onto this person that I know from a person I think is funny. And I think that's just kind of that's nice, and I think that's something that like Buffy does so well. And also like Shaun of the Dead, I'm always thinking about Shaun
I
of the
love
Dead.
that movie.
I
So
know,
it lives
I
rent
like
free in my head.
Sure,
every day of my life.
It is so funny, but the horror stuff in that is taken so seriously, and it's scary, and the like gore is so shocking in it,
and
but
it's
like
sweet.
And it's sweet. Yeah, totally. I mean, that relationship between Simon Pegg and Nick Frost in that is like really beautiful and touching, and
Yeah.
that ending when they're just playing video games in the shed is so beautiful and perfect, and I like love that movie so much, and like love the way in which that did horror and comedy, and wanted to do something that kind of mashed those things up in a similar way, and I wanted to like love the characters as much as they loved those characters.
It shows. I think one thing that is evident is through the artwork, through the writing, you guys had fun, and it felt personal. But at the same time, you guys just had plain old fun. It's not.
Yeah.
You're not taking yourself too seriously, and that's a really good thing. Like sometimes it's good to take you do without going overboard. You're very aware of the story you're telling. It's a very well done story. It's fleshed out. There is very much a beginning, middle, and end. We get an epic battle sequence throughout, and there's a lot of cool demon-esque sequences that I think people are going to be surprised about. So as we kind of wrap up on, youth group, why don't you let people know, I know it comes out in July, let people know where they can pick it up at and what other things you're working on, where they can find you at.
Yeah, absolutely. So Youth Group comes out in July, and we'll be there at San Diego Comic-Con slinging copies if people are there. But if it sounds like a cool concept to you, gosh, we would love a pre-order. Oh my gosh, those pre-orders are so helpful for books and comics. So like,
yeah.
If you are into the idea, if you're a Bowen fan, if you were a '90s Youth Group kid,
there were a lot of us.
Yeah, you can go basically anywhere you get a book: Amazon, Barnes and Noble, better yet, your local indie bookstore, local comic book store. We love those places. And you could pre-order your copy there, or go to bit.ly/youthgroupbook, bit.ly/youthgroupbook, and that'll take you to the books page, and you can see some of Bowen's beautiful art and get a bunch of pre-order links there. So yeah, pick it up on July 16th when it comes out. But if you're champing at the bit for it, please give us a pre-order. We love them.
We both highly recommend it as well.
Oh, thank you so much. Gosh, it's been so fun to like talk about it with someone who's read it. Oh my gosh, you guys.
It is.
Yeah,
we enjoyed it. I was blown away.
Very much so. Yeah.
Yeah.
I absolutely blown away. People, please, 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 please get this book, pre-order it. I promise you, publishers, comic book shops, they all see the amount of pre-orders that come through.
Yeah.
I know there's a few of you out there, just a few, maybe a few thousand, if you will, that are going to San Diego Comic-Con, man. Find Jordan, find his crew. Let them know that you're interested in picking this up. Pick it up, read it. I promise you, it's going to be some of the most fun. Comic books, we're in like a golden age again of comic books right now, where there's so much good stuff out here.
And
And
your comic
guys
shop will
like,
pre-order anything you want them to.
oh, exactly. All you gotta do is walk into your LCS, be like, hey, I want to order Youth Group. All right, they'll do it. They'll look it up. It'll be pre-ordered. It'll be in your box the day it drops. And that's the best way you can support guys like Jordan, who are doing amazing work out there, and also your comic book shops at the same time. So Jordan, I just want to say, got to have you back, man. Absolutely loved getting to chat with you.
Anytime. Yeah.
We would love to get together and chat again. You're welcome here anytime. Anything you have coming on, or even just to shoot the breeze, you have something that you want to talk about.
Oh my gosh, please. Yes. I love to chop it up with nerds on the cast. So yeah, please just drop a line anytime, and I'll come back and talk about a Deadpool trailer if you want to.
That's what we're actually talking about at 9:15
That's
live.
right.
Oh, are you? Nice. Yeah.
We are.
If you want to have me for the X-Men 97 finale, I'll come back and talk about that when that drops.
Oh, you might need to come on one of our live shows.
Actually,
oh please, yeah.
We were going to talk. Yes, we are going to link this up because we actually have some things that I think you're going to enjoy. Everybody else,
heck yeah,
check this out. Show notes, follow those links, check Jordan out. We'll be back again here with some excellent creator interviews, if you will. Always follow our Cantina Hours, like, subscribe, share, Hops Geek News, any podcasting platform. That's where you can find us. We'll catch you guys soon. Cheers.